Thanks for joining us for this panel, which is part of our Career Exploration webinar series. Today's discussion is titled Career Exploration for Girls and Women Banking, and it focuses on the paths, experiences, and perspectives of women who have professional careers in banking. I'm Dr. Susan Madsen, founding director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project and the Karen Haight Huntsman Endowed Professor of Leadership in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. And I'm the host and will be the panel moderator today. Our career exploration webinars further the mission of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, which is to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women. First, I would like to thank our sponsors, the Utah Education Network, the John M. Huntsman School of Business, and USU Extension, and a special thanks to Beth Parker, the Director of Education of the Utah Bankers Association, for helping us coordinate this recording. To get us started, I would like to introduce our three panelists and then ask each of them why they chose to focus their careers on banking. Cari Fullerton is the Executive Vice President and Chief Credit Officer at the Bank of Utah, where she has worked for more than 25 years. Currently, she focuses on commercial lending, but has worked in many different areas. Cari earned a bachelor's degree in finance with an emphasis in economics from Montana State University. Cari is married, has one daughter, loves to ski, and is busy exploring her new electric bike. I have an electric bike. I appreciate that. So first, before I introduce the other two, I want to ask you a quick question, Cari. Why did you choose to focus your career as a banker?
Well, actually, it chose me. 25 years ago, it's more like 35 years ago that I entered the workforce. And if you look back on that, it was in the 80s when interest rates were very high, just like they are creeping up today. And there weren't many opportunities. When I graduated, there were only 2 people interviewing on our campus. And so luckily, one of them that I interviewed with, I was able to get a job with the Comptroller of the Currency, which was a bank regulator, still is. And at that time, I just took what I could get. I just earned a degree. And, many bankers are become bankers, not by design, but we're accidental bankers. And it's a wonderful industry to fall into.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Liese Rodger is a commercial banker at JP Morgan Chase with 11 years of finance and banking experience. She earned a bachelor's in history from Brigham Young University and decided to pursue a career in finance. As a commercial banker, she manages relationships for diverse women and veteran-owned businesses and firms within professional services. Her experience includes working with private banking operations, credit risk management, human capital management, and securities lending. So Liese, I would love to ask you the same question. Why did you choose to focus your career on banking?
Well, I had studied history, and about halfway through my program realized I didn't want to be a teacher, I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I didn't want to be a historian. So now what? And I actually had a friend that was working for a bank and recommended that I do an internship. And I applied, and it just worked out. And I was a little scared my first day that my orientation, the first person next to me was an accounting major, the other person next to me studied econ, and I'm like, what am I doing here? But it turned out the CEO of the investment bank at the time, he spoke to the interns, and he let us know that his undergrad was history. So I kind of felt like the joke was on everyone else. So it was a perfect place for me. And yeah, so that's kind of what got me into banking. And similar to what Cari said, you just kind of fall into it in some cases, and it's actually been a wonderful career.
I love that. And for both of you, even though you fell into it, you make that choice to stay. Yeah. You probably had lots of times in your life where you could have pivoted to other things. So I'll shift to Shelly Johnson. She's the Executive Vice President of Operations, Risk, and Strategy at Zions Bank and serves as chair for the Enterprise Zions Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. She is a values-based leader who believes that we each make choices to guide our futures and success. And she lives by several mantras, which are, it's okay to be the only one in the room who doesn't disagree with the status quo. Don't wait for an opportunity, make an opportunity happen, and allow others to have similar opportunities for success. Always be a mentor. So Shelly, why did you choose to focus your career in the area of banking?
Well, my journey is very different. I found myself about 12 years ago with a need to create a second career. My original company that I'd worked with for many, many years had a reorganization, and I found myself without a job. And so it took me a couple years to decide what I was going to go into next, almost like starting over after college. But my degree is actually in communications and psychology, so very different from banking. But my father was a banker, and so I had a lot of great stories from him about banking. And I really looked for a company that had the culture where I felt comfortable, and also, what type of career or company could meet the demands and pay me enough money that I could support my family. So after several failed attempts with some different companies, I found myself applying at Zions Bank. And immediately I saw opportunities there in banking. And so that's where I found banking. And here I am almost 10 years later.
Thank you so much. I love hearing about that background. To those listening in today, you're welcome to put questions into the chat through Zoom throughout the presentation, the panel discussion today, and we'll fit those in or have a little bit of time at the end. So I'll be watching those and we'll make sure and include those as we can. So I would like to start with Liese now on this next question. What types of careers are available in banking? So you don't all do the same thing. Everybody that's in banking doesn't do the same thing. So I'd love to have each of you answer that. Liese, we'll start with you and then move to Shelly.
Yes, I learned, while I was in college, I did actually add on a business minor. And so my exposure to banking and kind of the world of finance, I realized once I started working that barely scratched the surface. And one of the best ways that kind of the world of finance or banking was explained to me, it was, you have your entire body and every single part of it serves a different function, but each part actually helps every other piece of the body. And so really looking at, the careers in banking, I've done everything from private banking, operations, credit risk management. Now I'm client facing in commercial banking. I've done the HR and recruiting side. So there's a lot, but I think it's important to understand that there is a role and there is an opportunity. And as you develop more skill sets that you might be moving around, that you might find more interest. And even as things in the banking and finance world change, new roles develop. As we had, different economic downturns, we may have more regulations, we may have a greater need for operations teams, and especially as you expand globally. So there are a lot of opportunities and there's lots of different positions, but it's actually, I think, important to figure out what are your skill sets, and then from there being able to see what roles might fit for you.
Thank you so much. And I know generally you can, IT, every company needs IT. So you can do certain things in any company, including in banking. Shelly, do you want to add your thoughts?
Sure. Well, I think historically banking, people outside of banking think of banking as tellers, right? On the first line, giving you out cash, right? That's what we know in high school. And also giving you a car loan. But banking is so much more than that. So I think of banking as this umbrella, right? So you have this umbrella and there's all these different careers under banking. So you talked about IT, you think, there's accounting, there's data mining. Liese talked about private banking. If you like to talk to people and like working with the front line, we call it the front line in banking. But talking with our different clients, they're everything that you can possibly imagine or you have an interest in is covered under that banking umbrella. And so when we talk about careers, and I talk to other women or people interested in banking, I let them know that anything that you can think of is probably covered under the term banking, and that there's probably an opportunity within all of these banks or financial institutions that are being represented today. So all you have to do is ask.
Carrie.
Oh, Lisa and Shelly have just really hit it on the head. And I want you just to think about your life. And when you go to the grocery store and use a debit card, or if you use a credit card, all of those are a part of banking. So like they said, everything you do is related to banking. And therefore, within the bank, there's many, many departments that you wouldn't think about. If you need to wire money, if you use your debit card, if you do online banking, all of those functions are supported within the bank. And many of those functions are backroom functions. So if you don't feel like you're extroverted and you really love to be with people, there's a lot of positions that are in the back room, but just as important. And then what we've found is many employees will come and go, well, I don't really know anything about banking, and they don't need to. What you need to know is about yourself, that you can do anything that becomes available to you. There's nothing in banking that you cannot learn. Everything we do is very learnable. It's not like we're rocket scientists and going to the moon and you need like an engineering background. You see the diversity of the panel. Everybody can become a banker, and I would encourage you to consider yourself and commit to yourself, and you'll be a great banker.
Thank you so much. And, in our minds, those of us outside the banking, we're like, you have to be really good at numbers and all of that. And I'm sure it helps in many, many positions, but maybe not all, right? Let's switch to the next question. Shelly, I'll start with you on this. And actually, Liese mentioned, well, we've all talked about this already. What associates, bachelor's and graduate degrees that are good degrees to prepare you for this field, and what would you recommend?
Thanks, Susan, for that question. Traditionally, degrees in finance, accounting, economics, things like that. If you decide to go further, MBAs, things like that, CPA certification beyond that. Are degrees that do help within banking. But as Liese and myself have talked about, we have a atypical education route where my degree was in communications and psychology. You think as soon as you graduate exactly what you're going to do in life. But from my experience, that changed. And once you finally get into either doing what you thought you were going to absolutely love, sometimes that changes, or just life experiences may bring you to a different decision there. But certainly, I had that degree in communications and psychology. I rounded that out with an MBA later in life, but it was my experience here within the bank. You hear about Liese and Carrie talking about experiences that they had within banking, and it's those experiences really within the company that brought me to where I am today. So it's a combination of both a degree that gets you your foot in the door, and then it's that experience in the industry and your company, and then the individual of who you are and how you decide to lead out.
Thank you so much. So Carrie, what associates, any kind of degrees would you recommend?
Well, first of all, just get a degree. That shows an employer that you've committed to yourself, you're willing to learn, you're disciplined, you'll finish something, there's a stick-to-itness quotient there. But within banking, because we are so heavily regulated, there is a ton of training. And any job that is available in the bank, we almost always have to internally train people. And there's formal training, there's formal classes that last like a year if you want to get a certification. But there's also day-to-day training, weekly training, monthly training. And I would encourage you to put your hat in the ring for every single thing that is offered. Take every path. You don't know where it's going to lead to, but the more people in a bank that know you and know about your skill set, the more opportunities you have. And when you think about how you want to be perceived, you want people to know that you are interested in learning, you are interested in meeting new people, you're not afraid to put yourself out there. And again, don't underestimate yourself. There is nothing that we do in banking that you cannot learn. It's a very a friendly environment. There's lots of support, way more support today than there was when I started, and it's wonderful. You know, I see people like Liese and Shelly coming into the industry without the formal degree that I had, and that's what we should do, because we are recognizing our community when we do that. So please don't worry about formal education, formal training. The bank will move you along. They will help you, but please get a degree, commit to yourself.
Yeah, excellent. And Liese?
Yeah, I would just say, be thoughtful about when you are, even if you are choosing a major and you don't end up doing the same thing later, kind of like I did, try to recognize what skill sets that you have developed from it. So in my mind, I thought the only thing I could do was be a teacher or a lawyer. But really, when I looked at it as far as history, what was I spending all of my time doing? Well, first of all, I was writing a lot. So I was able to come into my profession and be a little bit more advanced as far as my writing skills go. I also was able to look at, okay, well, what do I do as a history major? I'm analyzing things that I think happened and then proposing what I actually think did happen based off of the limited information that I have. And then also, how do we not repeat those things? And you actually analyze that within banking a lot as well, where I think, okay, well, this has happened before. This is what we didn't like. This is how it didn't turn out how we wanted it to. How do we prevent that? And so actually looking at, well, how can I transfer those skills? So no matter what it is that you are studying, and, like Cari said, whatever you're doing, get a degree, but you're going to learn a skill set. And so whatever that skill set is, how do you transfer that, whether it's within banking or somewhere else? The skill set's going to be useful.
I love that. A lot of people don't understand that. Honestly, I especially within schools of business, you hear things like, oh, those psychologists or those behavioral scientists or this and that, or English or history. But actually, those are fabulous degrees to go into business, right? So at least I'm going to stay with you for just a second and give you a quick question. We'll just do this question quick. Any thoughts about, can banking careers be family friendly? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, actually. So I am single and unmarried. So I've had an interesting, experience, with banking. I am very grateful that I have worked for firms that have, for when that does happen for me, and I am having children, that I do have those resources available where I would be able to spend whatever necessary time at home or balance that. But what I've learned from my own experience, or even around my coworkers, is that everyone's family experience and family life looks different. And I've had to fight for my family time in a sense throughout my career, because there's been this misconception that if I'm single or don't have children, that I must have all the free time in the world. And that's not the case. How I spend my time may be different, but it's still extremely valuable. And even when it comes down to, holidays, everyone wants time off, things like that. And early on it was, well, you can do it because you don't have family. Well, I have a mother, I have a sister, I have nieces.
You do have a family.
I have a family, and I also don't live close to them. So sometimes my friends are my family, and everyone should be able to feel like they have that support group, and how that is for each person is going to look vastly different. So I think it's important to communicate that. I mean, there's no issue with that. There's things where I've been very involved with different community groups, and sometimes that is family for me. And so, as I communicate that with my team or with my managers, I always feel like I'm supported, and that there's not an extra load I have to carry because my load may look different.
Thank you. Cari.
Oh, I loved your explanation, Liese. That happens more than you think, and especially in Utah. Family is so important in Utah, and I encourage you to believe that you can have it all. You should have it all. And with that, along with the commitment to your family, you have a commitment to your employer. You have a commitment to your coworkers. So when I talk about family friendly, it goes both ways. Yeah. In our organization, when I manage my team, like Liese said, there are 100 different things that happen to your team members in a day or in a week. And of course you support them. And of course their family is the most important in that moment. But for the rest of the moments, you have to commit to the bank. You have to commit to your employer and to your coworkers. So I think most industries are family friendly, but don't misunderstand what that means. It means that you work for an organization that values your input. They need you there, and they need you to be committed, and they need to rely on you. So with that, it's your commitment to them, and then you need them to commit to you. So when you need help, or when they offer you things or promise you things, that's their commitment to you. It goes both ways, and it really only works when each side gives 110%.
Thank you so much. And then Shelly, I'll finish off that question with you.
Thanks, Susan. I have 3 children, and I have worked since, day one within a company, raising and balancing family work-life balance that way. And I have been really lucky that I found companies that have always supported, again, family first. But like Carrie said, there's still a work expectation that you're going to still fulfill what they need you to do. And so I don't ever take that for granted that way. But again, I think it's setting clear expectations, not only as an employee, but also as a manager on what those expectations are. And also do your research as you go into a company. Try to find employees that actually work there and, are experiencing those same scenarios.
Thank you so much. And Shelly, I'll stay with you on this question. So this one is just a very quick question, but I think it's important for high school and early college young women to understand this. And those listening in right after this question, we'll take a few other questions from you. So put those in the chat. So Shelly, my question is I know there's so many fields like IT and HR and finance and accounting and everything in there. But generally, what range, if someone graduates and really wants, with a degree, let's say with a bachelor's degree, what range have you seen people paid within the banking industry?
Well, Susan, I think that sometimes it's subjective. It depends on what role you enter into a bank. But with a bachelor's degree, for example, Zions has a great officer development program, and we are paying individuals that are entering that program $65,000 to start out. And then within an 18th month training period, again, some training individuals who come out of college, don't know anything about banking, on how to be a banker or into, an underwriter and to be a loan officer. So we start them off at 65, but then from there they can go on up to $70,000+. Again, we try to be competitive with the market, but I think that's a great starting point.
Thank you. Liese.
Yeah, like Shelly said, it really also depends on, what areas of the bank that you're working in. For example, I work in a revenue producing area of the bank. And so oftentimes maybe it might be, that the salary or the bonuses might be a little bit higher. However, it's also very performance based, and that's in any role that you're in. And so I think that when it comes to your earning potential, that's going to really reflect your work ethic. And so I think that as you're working hard and you are helping the company to do better, that is like when Carrie mentioned, that it goes both ways, that you will be rewarded for it. And so the ranges, it really kind of varies, but I would also say it also depends on where you're living as well, taking into account whether you're in a big city, but also the other different costs that come with it as well. So yeah, I think that in my experience, even if there's different programs, a lot of those programs are pretty standard where everyone around you is making the same amount. And then from there, from your performance, you can earn a little bit more. And so, yeah, I would say those programs are really great as well because they help you to develop. And there's a lot of attention brought to it so that you are getting that development. And I'd say that that's an area for great earning potential.
And it, at least right now, and I think it'll continue, there's such a talent shortage too. So people really, really are paying a pretty good living wage. And it's challenging because if you're, in certain parts of the state, there's such high housing costs and so forth. But it's not a low paying industry. It's right in the a good amount from what I'm hearing. Cari, any thoughts before I pick up a question?
Well, and let me just add that if you don't have your degree yet, you're working at it and you're moving along your career path, there are positions in the bank that are, let's say they pay $17 to $30 an hour. Well, that's about $35,000 to $50,000 a year. So when you listen to the numbers that were recently shared, the 65, that tells you the value of that degree. So when you look at the difference, it's worth it. It's worth it for the rest of your life to get a degree, because even though 35 to 50,000 is a great contribution to a family, you probably aren't going to be able to have everything that you want in life if that's where you end up in a bank. So, the hard reality is make sure that you commit to yourself early, and you will prosper greatly throughout your life with that degree, because there's just so much more potential for earning and also feeling great about yourself.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to give you 3 questions, but I just want each one of you to answer each of these 3 questions. So I will look at which of you wants to go first. So here's the first question. Are there banking jobs that young women can get in high school that would help them get some early experience in this profession? Who would like to answer that one? Shelly, thank you.
Well, I should say my banking career actually started in college, but so right out of high school, for those that turn 18 earlier, while they're in high school, a teller is a great foundation to start off in banking. It pays well. It's flexible with your schedule. So that's a perfect idea if you're in high school, you're over 18, and you want to begin a career in banking.
Thank you so much. And here's another question. And this takes off kind of something I said earlier. Some people struggle with math. I wonder if there's, something in a banking career with math. Who would like to answer that of the 2? Liese, I see your mute coming off. I'll let you handle this one.
So if there are opportunities for those that I guess understanding the question, are there opportunities for those that aren't good at math?
Yes.
Is that okay? Yes, 100%. Throughout college, I took every class that I could to avoid math. And in fact, I got away with not taking algebra and statistics because I took a history of math class. So I really wanted out of math. So yes, there is a lot of opportunities within the bank. I think one of the things that I have learned in my experience, or what was taught to me when I started my career, was we can teach you how to do the job. We just can't teach you how to be competent or to get along with people, or, or how you learn. And so math, it's still not my strong suit at all. I rely heavily on Excel or other, resources. But really, I think that if you are willing to learn, there's a lot that you can learn and apply. I mean, my accounting knowledge is far beyond from when I had graduated college, but it's in a setting that makes a lot of sense to me. That now that as I'm working with businesses and I can see how much money that they bring in and what is their debt, all of that makes a lot more sense to me when I'm seeing it play out in the real world. It's
So
hard to understand.
It sticks in your head better.
Yes. And it's a lot harder to understand that, I think, from a classroom versus when you're actually in there and you actually just see how that benefits a business and how it helps them grow, or maybe it might hurt them. So as you apply it, the math can make a little bit more sense.
Thank you. And then Cari, I'm going to give you the last question, and then from the audience today, and then I have one quick final question for all of you. So the last one is, and this is a great question. Thank you to the audience for this one. We haven't talked about remote work. So are all, we think of tellers, right? They have to be in person, but are there jobs that are fully remote or half remote or whatever? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. Any customer facing position is primarily going to be in bank. But not always. I mean, there are remote tellers where you can do just what we're doing on a Zoom kind of platform. You could do that. It's not our preferred method. But we do have remote work for jobs that can be done in isolation. So if you are an underwriter for mortgages, that is at your desk, going through lots and lots of data at your computer every day. That can be done anywhere. But let me share with you, having lived through the last 3 years of remote work and in office, the collaboration that you miss out on at remote work is invaluable. Many times, spontaneous conversations lead to strategic initiatives within an organization, or even strategic platforms that people are integrated into because they were there in the moment. I don't want you to think that you can't have a valuable career in the bank, but learning with people, dealing with people, interacting and communicating with people is a big part of banking and any industry. And it's really hard to do remotely. So please consider all of your options, and that may change throughout your life. Early on, like Liese, she's single, she can do whatever she wants, but other times you might be tied down where you have to be at home more than what the bank would normally allow. So there are options based on what's going on in your life.
And thank you. And Liese, I do want to acknowledge that I'm pushing back just a little bit, but sometimes we have elder care and other kinds of things as well that really take our time as well. So we're at the end of our time, but I want to give you one quick, and if you can just make a quick response to this, I would love it. And Shelly, let's have you start. And this is, as we're kind of wrapping up our conversation, why would you encourage young women to consider a career in banking?
Susan, that's such a great question. It's actually something that as I went into banking, I even thought about personally. You've really got to ponder that. And when I went into banking, again, I talked about banking and the umbrella and all the different careers. Well, think about all the opportunities that are available. So let's say you go in, and I was hired in credit. I'm now in finance and strategy. There are so many opportunities to change within your career. Again, it's being open-minded, adaptable. You don't even realize your own all your strengths. And so over time, my just interests have changed. And so I can still be with the same organization, but change my career or my position, but still live within that same culture and same, again, family, business friendly environment. So that's why I enjoy working in banking. And I think other people would really enjoy that too, knowing that they still have that confidence in the organization that they work for. Thank you so much. Carrie, I'll go to you next and finish up with Liese today.
I think the question is, why not go into banking? It's really interesting. It doesn't sound like it would be, but it really is, because you get to deal with everybody from your grandma coming to do a wire to multinational businesses, dealing with international companies. And you learn about so many different businesses. It might lead to something else, but please consider how, and you won't know. Let me just tell you, at ages 15 to 18, you don't know, and you don't have to know what you want to do. None of us knew what we wanted to do, and maybe we still don't. We aren't at the end of our game. But please consider that there's so many opportunities within a bank that you will find a home, you will find a place. So please consider banking. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. And one thing that hasn't come up yet is there really are part-time and full-time positions. And more, I know some banks, at least within the state, have professional part-time. So not just a part-time generally, but professional work part-time that gives you options as well. And Liese finishes off today.
Yeah, I would say, earlier this year, I was speaking to a woman business owner, and she asked what I did. And I told her I'm a commercial banker, and her response really shocked me, but it's actually helped me to be a little bit more passionate about my job. And she said, "Oh, good. We need more women in banking." Oh. And it was a wonderful response to have. And at first I was thinking, well, why from her perspective? And as I got to know more of my clients, especially those that were women, what I found is that a lot of them felt intimidated. I felt the same way when I was in college. And if I walked by the business school, all I saw were men in suits. And what I've learned is that representation really does matter. And that as I see more women in banking, I also see a career for me as a woman. And I know that benefits my clients, that there are certain women's issues that maybe only a woman can understand, and being able to communicate that, or maybe a business is more geared towards women's needs. And so being thoughtful about maybe the bankers that are helping in that space. And so I think that the more representation that we have within banking, it really has a broader reach and reaches into other industries, because banking touches every industry. And so I think that as we as women are helping to grow within banking, then we're able to also do the same thing across other industries.
Excellent. I love that response. It crosses over every industry, and I would say every individual,
Right.
Like everybody. And some people may not have accounts or whatever, but I think it benefits everyone, or could benefit everyone. Thanks so much to my guests, Cari Fullerton, Shelly Johnson, and Liese Rodger. And again, thanks to the Utah Education Network for their partnership on this series, and to Beth Parker and the Utah Bankers Association for their support and sponsorship. And finally, to all of you listening, remember that you have so many career options. I encourage you to explore all these options and then consider your own individual interests and passions, your gifts, your talents, and your strengths. And these combined with a college and university education can help prepare you for an engaging and meaningful profession throughout your life. Thank you so much.